From Nicolas Borras to Pauline Laporta. From 15th century Italian Renaissance to post-Cubism. From the head of St. Peter to evolution and overture of the circle. 5 centuries of art, 5 centuries of history. A voyage that takes place within the walls of a museum. MUBAG of Alicante. In the 19th century, the Provincial Council of Alicante started a collection of works of art destined for a future museum, a space capable of summarizing the incredible artistic history of the province of Alicante. The idea crystallized in 2001 with the renovation of a splendid building. The Palace of Lumiares shows us the best of 18th century Baroque architecture. To provide this collection with an appropriate environment for its conservation was fundamental to the project, which was entrusted to a team of architects at the Provincial Council. Top priority was given to all technical requirements in order to ensure that the works of art would be kept safe for all time. The criterion of chronological order in operation in MUBAG allows the visitor to follow the evolution of art in Alicante from the 16th century to the beginning of the 20th century, as well as the political, cultural and social development, the religious customs, and the way of life of the people of Alicante for over 5 centuries. The order of presentation follows a rigid historical model, beginning the journey with the oldest works kept by MUBAG. This section is not the most outstanding in terms of the number nor the quality of exhibits. However, interesting pieces from the 16th and 17th centuries have recently been incorporated into the collection that help to fill the obvious void. Predating these, MUBAG houses a priceless painting, The Crucifixion, a work by Rodrigo de Osona the Elder, an artist at the head of the 15th century Italian Renaissance movement, which so penetrated southeastern Spain. We can contemplate 2 paintings in oil on wood by Nicolas Borras, a painter born in Cocentaina in 1530. St. Vincent the Martyr and St. Lawrence the Martyr, works small in dimension that, perhaps, form part of an altarpiece not conserved in its entirety. MUBAG houses a beautiful work by Cristobal Llorens, another notable 16th century painter from Alicante, St. John and St. Joseph with the Child, painted with tempera and egg on a pine panel. With regard to the 17th century, MUBAG exhibits a priceless oil on wood, attributed to the school of Francisco Ribalta, the head of St. Peter. This painting shows the aged face of St. Peter, with a large beard and eyes in a trance staring towards heaven. 1600 was the year of the birth of the painter from Cocentaina, Jerónimo Jacinto de Espinosa. MUBAG keeps an oil on canvas by him entitled St. Peter the Martyr. It is outstanding for its strong realism, its careful drawing, and its intense chiaroscuro. From the academic and neoclassical period, almost all of the great figures born in Alicante or who worked there are represented. This is the case of Vicente Rodes, a painter of enormous stature, without whom it would be difficult to understand the neoclassical movement in Spain. MUBAG exhibits a portrait in oil by Rodes and a series of excellent portraits in pastel. By José Aparicio, one of the exponents who best personifies neoclassical style in Spain and considered to be a real legend of his time, we exhibit two works, Judith with the head of Holofernes and the exquisite Portrait of a Lady. Also from the 18th century, we find in MUBAG various works by the painter Vicente Suárez, the Allegories of Asia, Africa, and America, and a splendid view of the city of Alicante. Paintings inherited from the circle of the consulate and which form part of the art collection of the Provincial Council of Alicante. We close the academic and neoclassical period with three works by the painter from Alicante, José Perez Alcañiz, Allegory of Geography, the Muse Orania, and Portrait of a Gentleman, painted in 1812. However, the main attraction, and that which, in a way, gives meaning to the museum, is the painting of the 19th century. A large collection of canvases are displayed in various rooms, the majority of which are by painters from Alicante, with both national and international reputations. To these we add well-known names of the Romantic period, mostly Andalusian, such as Antonio Maria Esquivel, one of the most important figures of Sevillean Romanticism. By his hand is Portrait of Don Tomás Roberto of Spain, crafted with bold strokes and fluent design. From the Alcoyán, Anton Gisbert, we have The Comuneros of Castilla, in which he offers us his dramatic vision and his mastery of drawing and colour. Gallant Scene, a work in which the language of Rococo survives. And the excellent portrait Lady in Blue. Cleric reading a book is by another Alcoyán, Ricardo Navarrete y Fos. The canvas is outstanding for its concentration on light and shade, and, above all, for the artist's prodigious ability to capture the human form. Woman in the Church and The Lover are two of the three works housed by MUBAG by Plácido Francés, another painter from Alcoy, who, at the age of only 23, created Saint Francis and Brother Leon, a canvas impregnated with an academic air. Carefully drawn and beautifully shaped, the realism of the face of the saint is outstanding. By Francisco Laporta, a magnificent draftsman and colourist from the same centre of Alcoy, one can see two canvases, The Alchemist and the slightly sweet Mystic Rose, which, surrounded with an aura of light, overflows with a feeling of fervour and purity. Joaquin Agrasot, one of the best painters from Alicante, is represented in the museum by 3 of his works. View of the Port of Alicante, dated 1875, a precise graphic document which allows us to see an area inextricably linked to the history of the city. Manola and Odalisque, another magnificent canvas, full of spirit and Orientalism. The undoubted quality of the Alcoyan Lorenzo Casanova can be seen in 3 works by his hand, kept by the museum. Prayer at Dawn, Children's Game, and Cervantes' Dream. Painted using a chiaroscuro technique, we find a realism connected to Spanish tradition. The scene invites us to enjoy the detail of the table, covered with objects, one of the most successful parts of the canvas. Landscapes are represented in the museum by one of the best pieces from the Alicante-born Francisco Buchel. His Evening in Florence is a magnificent example of landscape painting in the Romantic style. In the work of Antonio Amoros, one perceives a common touch and his admiration for humble folk. Paturo Inn, Children Dancing, and Laundry Woman of Scarpa are the 3 paintings that can be enjoyed by this artist from Alicante. The Bankruptcy by Pedro Serrano Bossio represents a realism tinged with social content. Fruit Cellar is another of his works, kept by the museum. Emilio Sala, from Alcoy, is considered to be one of the best Spanish painters of the second half of the 19th century. His Portrait of a Lady is crafted with brushstrokes that give it a touch of modernity. The museum has another 3 of his excellent paintings: Allegory of Letters, Allegory of Music, and the Hashish Smoker, in which he proclaims his passion for the Oriental. MUBAG houses 3 paintings by the great painter Fernando Cabrera. Do You Need a Model? Is a work of enormous vivacity which can be attributed to the rapid brushwork of this master from Alcoy. Flower Cellar is a good example of Valencian customs and manners. And one of his best achievements, Portrait of Sorolla and his Wife, in which he shows his virtuosity and his outstanding role in the history of Spanish portraiture. The dramatic painting, Alone, is a work by Eliodoro Guillén from Alicante. In this excellent work, a woman shows her grief at the death of her son. By the landscape artist born in Petrer, Vicente Poveda, is the small canvas Landscape of a Terrace in Rome. A work that brings him close to universal impressionism. On the second floor of the museum, the works of more recent painters are exhibited, establishing a chronological limit up to the artists of the 20th century, born before 1920. MUBAG keeps 4 works by the exquisite still life painter, landscape and portrait artist Adelardo Parilla. Fisherwoman, Shepherdess, and 2 still life with fruit, created with rich and colourful strokes. Searchlights on the Sea and Portent of a Storm, a canvas painted in 1931, are 2 of the works kept by MUBAG by Andrés Buffon, an important artist who had the sea at the centre of his works. By the original and prolific Emilio Barella, perhaps the most significant painter from Alicante of the first half of the 20th century, one can admire an important collection of canvases. By Gaston Castelló, painter and mural artist, the museum keeps the watercolour Convicts Taking a Nap. Kalpen. View of Villa Joyosa. Mother and Son, and the Castle of Santa Barbara, one of the best interpretations ever of this important part of the city. In Manuel González Santana, one has one of the outstanding figures of Impressionism in Alicante. 2 of this artist's works are exhibited: Landscape and Landscape of a Mirador, in which the tiny brushstrokes turn the canvas into a background of speckles, through which the artist exteriorizes his pictorial energy. Portrait of a Woman is a canvas by Lorenzo Aguirre, portrait artist and painter of large compositions. The sobriety of content in this painting does not exclude a strong juxtaposition of light and shade. The facial expression is an invitation to the spiritual universe of the woman. Rigoberto Soler stands out as a great landscape artist and developer of local impressionism with a lyrical feeling. The museum exhibits 4 of his canvases: The Water Cellar, Ibethan Cove, The Patio, and Market Scene, one of his most succulent compositions. MUBAG boasts two examples that best capture the pictorial technique of Francisco Rodríguez Clement from Elche, known by some as Little Sorolla. Landscape with Figures, and Allegory, a work with numerous ancient and contemporary references. A chiaroscuro atmosphere concentrates its main light on a woman in a trance. The compositions of the great painter José Perez include portraits, still life, and above all, landscapes of an astonishing quality. We can savour several canvases in the museum by his hand. Pools of the Salinas. Reeds of the Salinas. Almond trees of Ifach. Almond trees of Santa Fath. MUBAG looks after three valuable works by Manuel Baeza Gómez. Boats, Little Girl with Windmill, and a composition embedded with the figurative approach that he would always follow. Bird Seller. José Matais Muñoz worked on landscapes using a brilliant and colourful style. Our museum houses two of his works: Peaceful Illusion and Landscape, the most exquisite canvas of all his output, in which he views the landscape from an elevated position, from where he gives priority to earthly objects, restricting the space occupied by the sky. MUBAG houses four paintings by Javier Soler, an artist of magic realism, in whose work rapid brushstrokes and a supreme beauty of colour are predominant. Covered armchairs. Inside of a bedroom with figure. Hat shop. And old women conversing. The images invoked by his painting become symbols of a potent creative force, nourished by an unrestrained vitality. Francisco Perez Pizarro is one of the personalities most representative of the Spanish vanguard. At the museum we can enjoy a series of watercolours without title, and a work entitled Spring on the Reservoir. This painting shows us, with a strong and impressive impact, a desolate vision of reality. Two canvases by the interesting artist from Elche, Sixto Marco, also occupy their space on the walls of MUBAG. MUBAG keeps an interesting collection of watercolours by Julio Quesado, an artist of great prestige and one of the best Spanish watercolourists. Menorcan Cove, Salamancan Chap, Grain Market, Port of Ciudadela, Mogaraz, City of Ghent, one can see 4 works in the museum by the universal painter from O'Neill, Eusebio Sempere, investigator of light, colour levels, mass, and the combination of geometric forms and of lyricism. Virtual rotating movement. Rhombus and ovals. Evolution and overture of the circle. And without title, in which the interweaving of lines gives us a feeling of mass and spatial depth. MUBAG exhibits 5 watercolors by Vicente Pastor Kalpen, considered to be one of the best contemporary naturalistic painters. By the Cuban artist Pancho Cosillo, one of the most solid artists of the 20th century, a synthesis between lyrical post-cubism from the school of Paris and the classical naturalistic tradition, we can view the work entitled The Vase, a splendid canvas that transforms shapes into an idea of flat space. Also housed by MUBAG is the canvas Tranquility in the Port by Juan Lloret Torregrosa, a self-taught artist and exceptional artistic personality. This work is characteristic of the force that impregnates all of his painting. Red Box and Black Box are 2 of the works kept by MUBAG by the Alicante artist Juana Frances, an outstanding painter who took part in the 12th biennial exhibition in Vienna alongside artists of the quality of Tapies, Dali and Miro. By Pauline Laporta, serene painter, intimate and nostalgic, we can view 3 works. The Antique Shop, The Lover, and the 5 Generations of Maria. A realistic canvas that assumes an exquisite expression of silence and of life. Another excellent group of paintings such as Female Head by Adolfo Dura, Costa Brava and Family Scene by Vicente Abaranch Blasco, Monoba by Luis Vidal Maistre, Ocheta by Enrique Lledó, Still Life by José Marced, Landscape by José Galvez Roig, Cove and Cape of San Martin by Juan Bautista Segarra, and Mooring Boats by Fernando Soria close this brilliant journey through the paintings of the 20th century, exhibited by MUBAG of Alicante. Sculpture, furniture and sumptuous decorative art are also represented in the museum, as much for their intrinsic quality, in some cases, as for their undoubted interest as elements that show us the social and cultural environment that gave birth to many of the works of art in this collection. A separate point of interest is the cabinet of works on paper, where engravings, watercolours and drawings bear testament to artistic disciplines, unjustly considered in many cases to be inferior. The works that constitute the collection bring us, in addition, an enormous amount of historical data about the everyday way of life and the landscapes, some of them now disappeared, that were enjoyed by our ancestors. 1,200 square metres of permanent exhibition space and the 500 square metres available to MUBAG for temporary exhibitions are at the service of our culture and our town. We find ourselves before a collection that attempts to give witness to past times. It offers artistic creations from the province of Alicante, hoping to move its visitors to enjoyment and reflection. We see before us ways of creation and social relations different from those of the present day, but which have determined, in historical terms, everything that we are.